Hello, this is Kara from Kara Tarot with a combined general reading for Friday, May 2nd, 2025, with a long overdue deck review of Influence of the Angels Tarot by Jodi Boginski-Barbessi and Karen Boginski. I have said in many videos this is my favorite deck, but I had never done a deck review of it. Ethany on her channel, when she talked about this deck, said it's the angel deck for people who don't like angel decks, and I agree with that completely. Generally, when I think of angel decks, I think they're a little too sweet, and this one, for a whole variety of reasons, which I will go through, doesn't fall into those categories. This also, the reason for me doing this now is this is my deck focus of the month that I just started yesterday, and I'll talk about why that is too. So I will be repeating a lot of things I've said before about this deck, but I will just lay out the cards as I speak. If you have, for some reason, never seen this deck or thought you might not be interested in it, you can see the depth of the art history that is presented here. That is based on a painting by William Blake. This is one of the court cards, and here is Machiavelli. He is another one of the court cards. All of the court cards are portraits of actual people. I do not know all of them yet, and that's one of my purposes in my deep dive this month. I want to at least learn all of the people who are represented in the court cards and make a dent in getting to know the angels. In the majors, there is an angel represented or assigned for every major. There was a pause there because I was coughing. This is the card that this deck introduced itself to me with, and that was very meaningful to me, both strength and protection. It has many of my favorite representations of cards. As I said recently in another video, this is my favorite representation of the Three of Pentacles, because it is the master, the apprentice, and the horse all working together, of course, under the guidance of this angel. But this deck has many of my favorites, as well as the devil card that creeps me out the absolute most. I just think it's so gross every time I see it. So as you'll see in the minors, there are angels interacting, but the real depth of the knowledge required of the angels is in the majors, where each major represents an angel, a particular angel. And that is one of the things I want to get to know better this month as I'm working with it. So that's my intentional study with it. And for a deck that has become my far and away favorite, you can't spend too much time with that deck. So that's another reason for me to have this as my month-long study. I have raved about the book. If you're following my daily affirmations, you know that currently my general affirmation deck is the Tizama African Tarot, but which does have an affirmation for each card. But oh, nice. It ends with the book, the card on the cover. But I'm also using the affirmations from this deck. It's called the Angelic Message, and there is one for each card in the guidebook. So these are the extra things that I just love about this deck. We have a very well-written guidebook. We have the information on the specific angels for the majors. We have the information on the people depicted in all of the court cards. They also have just a number meaning card, Ace through King, what the general keyword meanings are for each one of the numbers. And then there is a suit card, which I know I left that in the middle of another book. And that talks about the major attributes of each suit and its elements. So just a tremendously smart deck with an incredible amount of depth to dig into. It is a deck that I think is very user-friendly for beginners, and one of the reasons that I think that is because of the angelic message or the affirmation in this book. In addition, the descriptions of the cards are just in addition to the description of what's on each card, breakdown of the symbols in each one of these cards makes it very good for beginners. As I've said elsewhere, I don't think it's the best deck for a beginner because I do think it's important that you learn the traditional systems first. And this deck does not have many of the traditional symbols that you would see in the Rider-Waite-Smith system that this is based on. So it kind of strips a lot of those out, but it does talk about the symbols that they have used pretty much to replace them. I have the US Games version of this deck, which is copyright 2018, so it is by no means a new deck. One of my standards for a deck has become, do you have or do you want a second copy? I do have a second copy. I was able to find it brand new, or basically brand new, unused on a Facebook trading group. So I do have a second copy. Because I know this will remain a main one for me. This is the US Games version of this deck. It is beautifully produced. It is linen finish, but not incredibly slippery. Those are the backs. And then lovely gilding, which is holding up exquisitely. And then one of the things I love about it is the visual representation of this border, and I do like borders. The visual representation of this border gives it the effect of being 3D. And that's just something really special. It almost has like a curved pillow effect. So that's the deck, and those are all the reasons why I think this is just an exemplary deck. And it, as you can probably see now, it doesn't have kind of a lot of angel decks have kind of this icky, sticky sweetness about them. I think it would be called treacly in classic British literature. Too sweet and too positive, and I like a deck that has the whole range. I think because the cards are there to help connect with us, with our unconscious, to understand our own emotions better. Our emotions have the full range, light and dark, good and bad. So I think it's important that there be that the deck represent all of that. So those are my thoughts and my review of this deck. I couldn't give it any higher review than to say it is my favorite deck. If I had, if I were going somewhere that I could only take one, I would grab this. Now that I have two of them, I would grab it. Before, it might have been a little too precious to me. And as I said, they're not expensive. They're pretty easy to get, so it's pretty easy to have an additional copy or 2 additional copies. Maybe. There are a couple spreads in the back of this book, and I am going to use the spread today called The Influence of the Angels Tarot Spread. It is a 5-card spread. And so we have, I'll have to kind of spread this laterally to make it all fit. The querent, the guardian angel, the ministering angel, and the messenger angel. In the layout, these are above it. And the querent after, so the questioner afterwards. And it is that time of year. I have chronic asthma and lifelong sinus problems, and I have to go blow my nose. Meanwhile, I realized I did not complete my review. I just kind of did the flip through and overview, so I will get back to that. So this is the spread, and I will have already placed a layout of this spread in a picture form in the video. I'll edit that in. So we have the querent. Right now, this is your current situation or state of mind. Again, this is a general reading for Friday, May 2nd. The Two of Pentacles. So we know that the Two of Pentacles is a decision process going on. I love that she's dancing. It looks like she might be switching back and forth from foot to foot as she's playing in the waves here. So even though this is a pentacle suit, we do have a great deal of emotion attached here. And she's an orange, which is, it's not as passionate and overwrought as a red might be. The orange is more of a generous and friendly color. So, but she is dancing from foot to foot as she juggles these pentacles with the angel looking over her, and she's looking at the angel. So as she makes her decision, you have a decision to make, and as you make that decision, you should be also thinking about your guardian angel, thinking about your higher self and your higher goals as you make this decision. I always say that, to my mind, this decision is not as fraught as or complex as the decision that is indicated by the Two of Swords. To me, the Two of Pentacles it's usually represented by some kind of juggling, which is more of a game. So the stakes are probably not as high. It's a decision that isn't quite as fraught. And given these colors, it might even be sort of a happy choice to make, choosing between two nice things. The Guardian Angel. With care and concern, the Guardian Angel card addresses your well-being. Ah, the Magician. This is, I think, the third reading in 3 days that I've had the Magician in. One of them may not have been an online reading. So your guardian angel, the Magician, we know that in general, the Magician is about having all the tools at your disposal, having great facility with the tools, that you have all the tools that you need at your disposal. Now, because of my particular study, I'm going to take a moment and talk about what angel. This is the angel Michael, whose name means, quote, who is like God, end quote. Michael is known for his courage, his leadership, and his ability to protect people. So right away, this card, this guardian angel card, is telling you that Michael is your guardian angel for this. Courage, protection of other people. These are your concerns. This may be the angel that you should be looking up to, and the concerns that you should be most thinking about as you make this decision. And as you're making that decision, all of these tools are at your disposal. All four of the elements, including as above, so below, bringing the divine light into your decision. The ministering angel card offers benevolent advice on the thing that you need help with. Wow. Some fiery advice on what you need help with. And once again, I'll be looking this up because this is a king, which means it is an actual person represented. But the kings in general represent your mastery of your own creativity, in this case, your fiery creativity. Once again, you're being told you have mastery of the things that are involved in this decision. And here we have a very odd looking, almost like a turkey angel here, speaking to him from below. And they add here, this is John Brown. He was an American abolitionist, fiercely against the institution of slavery, whose actions sparked the American Civil War. For much of his life, he led a fairly conventional lifestyle as a business and family man, but he was also deeply religious and a radical who came to believe the only way to end slavery was through violence, because he believed slavery was, quote, a state of war, unquote. With his 5 sons, he moved to Kansas, and he was dissatisfied with their non-aggressive approach to abolition, and famously said, "These men are all talk, what we need is action, action." So, there's more about him, but he is viewed by some as a religious zealot and a terrorist. Others consider him a martyr and a fighter. And that's usually the way. Usually, depending on which side you were on, and the other elements of his life, you would feel both ways about him. But here it is. This is your message about, this is the benevolent advice. So the benevolent advice would be to take action. That would be what I would get from this, is that it's not enough to have mastery. It's not enough to know what you can do. You can't keep dancing from foot to foot. You do need to take action. The messenger angel provides spiritual truths, especially regarding the particular issue or question. Oh, there he is. There he is, that absolutely gross devil, that slimy looking devil. So we know what the devil represents. He represents obsessions. So one of the reasons you may not be getting off your foot is because you may kind of, as I said, this may be a fun decision. So it could be that you kind of like both things and you really don't want to decide whether it's things or people. These pentacles tend to be material issues. So it's probably deciding between you get one thing or another thing, or whether you begin on one project or another project. And you really don't want to decide. You want to be able to do both. The angel associated with this card is Samael, a fallen angel whose name means venom of God. He encourages humankind to act in wicked ways and has been described as, quote, the chief of all Satans. So that is the representation in that card, but we still need to know generally what that card means for us. It usually means we may be tied to something that we don't need to be tied to. We're choosing to remain there instead of breaking free. So your messenger angel, once again, here, you have all the tools you need to take care of it. You need to take action. You need to break free of whatever is tying you into this state of indecision. So the querent after. This card indicates where you're headed after you've been influenced by the angels. The Queen of Wands. This is a card that I feel an affinity for. I have one book that says the Queen of Wands is like an exceptionally loyal friend. She's always there for you. She's fighting in your corner. She's very creative and very comfortable with her own creativity. And she ends by saying in that book, you're glad to have her as a friend, but you wouldn't want to be her. And I kind of identify with her for that reason. The Queen of Wands. So, wow, after I said I wanted to focus on the angels and the court cards, we got almost all angels and court cards. And here again, it's Wands. We had this fiery King of Wands. So she is the internal, even though you can't really see it, here she is, the internal version of him. This actual person depicted is Marguerite de Navarre, who lived from 1526 to 1549, a French noblewoman who has been dubbed Mother of the French Renaissance. She became the most influential woman in France after her brother ascended to the throne. She was a great patron of the arts. She befriended many artists, writers, thinkers, and provided support and encouragement to them. There we have that, support and encouragement. So you see right away why Jodi and Karen chose her to represent this queen. She was a highly educated woman with flair and gave the French court flavor. She even had a best-selling book, the Heptameron. She lived during the time of the Protestant Reformation, and France was a Catholic state. She helped with the growing tension by advocating common sense and moderation. So here you are, unable to make a decision. You need to get off the left foot, although she's on the right foot. You need to get off the foot. And she says, use common sense and moderation. They continue on. If she hadn't been the king's sister, she might have been imprisoned or burned at the stake because she passionately campaigned for church reform. She remained Catholic, but she did all she could to protect writers and thinkers who were suspected of Protestant leanings. So outspokenness, being candid, being a reformer, these are all parts of the Queen of Wands. You can't do any of this until you make this decision. And I think for those of you for whom this will resonate, you already know this. You have to make a decision one way or the other. You have to use all the tools at your disposal to go for it, go ahead and fight for what you believe in, do what you think you should be doing, get rid of the things that are tying you into indecision. And once you do, you have this great capacity for being practical and rational, for protecting others, which was also mentioned here. So that's your general reading for today with the influence of the Angels Tarot. As always, if it doesn't resonate with you, take this as a moment to get to know these cards with me as I am deepening my knowledge of them, and to appreciate the representations and artwork of this deck. In finalizing my review of working with this deck, despite the fact that the imagery is very, very far from the typical Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, in most cases, you can see here, these all kind of have echoes of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith image in the positions, in the way that it's laid out. So from a Rider-Waite system background, as I am, this is very easy to pick up and read once you know the Rider-Waite system. And at the same time, it adds this other elements of what is actually in these pictures themselves. And it just occurred to me here, this almost looks like these waves are on fire, which certainly fits with his fiery temperament. It would be the emotional side of the creative fire. There are so many layers, and then there are those additional layers of what does that particular angel stand for? And now those of you who have a Catholic religious background will probably know the angels better. Once you're told that that is the angel Michael, you'll know better what he represents and have a fuller understanding. Since I come from a Protestant background, but am interested, mainly because of my interest in history, I have an interest in the Catholicism, and then one of my deepest religious turnarounds was imbibing the works of Teresa of Avila. So for people with that kind of background, you may know those angels even better. You still have the individuals to get to know. And so there's a tremendous depth in this deck that's possible. But as I often say, I love a deck that you can pick up and read, which you can with this. It's close enough that you can pick it up and read it in a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith system without knowing any of that information. And you can. And yet, it still gives you these other things to dive into, which, as I said, is why it is my deep dive deck for May. So I hope you appreciate my thoughts on this deck and my love of this deck. Let's get honest about it. I mean, they said if I could only have one deck, I already know this would be it. There would be others that I would miss, but this would be it. And so hence my desire to continue deepening my work and my knowledge with it this month. I hope the reading resonated with you, and I hope that you have the opportunity to make those decisions that you've been dancing around, and once you've made that decision, to be able to step forward with practicality and reasonableness and fairness to protect others. Thanks for spending this time with me. Have a lovely day.